Can Mary fry some fish, Mama?
Neil Gaiman was born in Hampshire, United Kingdom. He now lives in Minneapolis and Boston. Neil was first able to read at the age of 4. He loved reading as a child, and some of his favorite authors are C.S. Lewis, Edgar Allan Poe, and J.R.R. Tolkien. Alice in Wonderland, The Chronicles of Narnia, and The Lord of the Rings were just a few of his favorite books as a child. Neil Gaiman first started his writing career as a journalist in England. He then went on to write his first book in 1984, a biography of the band Duran Duran. Neil has written and received many awards for his books, comic books, screenplays, and many other pieces of work. He is married to Amanda Palmer, and they have been married since 2011. He connects with his fans through many different uses of social media, including Twitter and blogs that he writes on his own website to keep his fans informed.
Neil, just an inquiry, wondering where, if you're feeling particularly at a creative low point, where you get your inspiration from to come up with such amazing tales and amazing subject matter to write your stories about?
What you've actually done there is ask the question that must not be asked of writers. You've rephrased it ever so slightly, but what you've fundamentally done is say, where do you get your ideas? And writers are awful to people who ask us where we get their ideas. We get mean. We don't just get mean, we get mean in a writery way, which means we'll make fun of you. And we do that.
I'm not afraid.
and the reason we do that is because we don't really know. And we're terrified the ideas will go away. So every writer I know has a funny answer. And you know, Harlan Ellison used to say that he got them from a little idea shop in Schenectady. I knew a writer who, when asked, would say he gets them from the Idea of the Month Club. And people go, really? He goes, oh yeah, every month they send you an idea. The truth is, I think, for me, inspiration comes from a bunch of places. Desperation, deadlines. A lot of times, ideas will turn up while you're doing something else. And most of all, I think ideas come from confluence. They come from two things flowing together. They come from essentially from daydreaming. It's that point, and I suspect it's something that every human being does. Writers tend to train themselves to notice when they've had an idea. It's not that they have any more ideas or get inspired more than anything else. We just notice when it happens a little bit more.
Johnny's Pop. Neil Gaiman has written over 120 works so far, with more works to soon be released. The majority of his works are for adults, but he has also written many children's books. His books are based on realistic fiction, fantasy, horror, and even comic books. Neil Gaiman is credited with being one of the creators of modern comics. The first comic book he wrote was Violent Cases in 1987. His most popular comic book is The Sandman, which is composed of 10 volumes. Sandman won 9 Will Eisner Comic Industry Awards, 3 Harvey Awards. It was the only comic book to be on the New York Times bestseller list, and was the first comic book to win a literary award, the 1991 World Fantasy Award for Best Short Story. American Gods won awards for Best Science Fiction/Fantasy Novel, Best Horror Novel, and was released in an expanded 10th anniversary edition. The Washington Post says, mystery, satire, sex, horror, poetic prose. American Gods uses all of these to keep the reader turning the pages. Some of his more popular books include Stardust, which was the first comic book to ever receive a literary award, the 1991 World Fantasy Award for Best Short Story. Neil narrated a trailer for his book, The Graveyard Book, which won a Newbery and Carnegie Medal.
When Bod's family is killed, he takes refuge in a graveyard. Is adopted by its inhabitants and taught all of the things that dead people know. Bod grows up in a world of his own, a world where he's caught between the living and the dead. Sometimes the world on the outside of a graveyard can be a dangerous place, and it will take more than just a couple of good-hearted souls to raise a child. It will take a graveyard. The Graveyard Book is a tale of friendship, family, and how truly great it is to be alive.
Other popular books he has written are Neverwhere and The Ocean at the End of the Lane. Some notable children's books he has written are Choose First Day of School, The Dangerous Alphabet.
As read on a New York Times .com review, call me a goody two-shoes, but I won't be reading the words Q is for quiet, bar one muffled scream to my kindergartner anytime soon.
And The Day I Swapped My Dad for Two Goldfish, which won Newsweek's magazine's Best Children's Book of the Year. Gaiman wrote a children's book called Coraline that won many awards such as ALA's Best Books for Young Adults, Amazon's Editor's Choice, Publishers Weekly Best Book, and many more awards, and was a very successful movie.
Coraline received many positive reviews, and this book won many awards. In the end, Gaiman and Grimley have combined forces to produce a gothic confection that bubbles with vitriol and wit.
The film Coraline was released in February 2009 in the United States. The film grossed over $124.5 million worldwide. It won Annie Awards for Best Music, Character Design, and Production Design. It received Academy Award and Golden Globe nominations for Best Animated Feature. He is also involved in other films, theater productions, comics, and television episodes. Here is Neil Gaiman talking about his time writing his episodes for the TV series Doctor Who, which were The Doctor's Wife and Nightmare in Silver.
Joining the casting crew on set is the man responsible for bringing the TARDIS so explosively to life, writer Neil Gaiman.
Brilliant, thank you very much.
Beautiful. This is Neil Gaiman, confidential. To have Neil around was a wonderful thing. I'd weirdly watched a movie called Coraline not long before, and was like, wow, he is a sci-fi great.
Of course, Neil is one of the premier, if not the premier, fantasy novelist on the planet.
Cool. That was Matt Smith. Or possibly that was the Doctor. I'm not quite sure which one I was talking to just then.
And it occurred to me, and not for the first time knowing Neil's work, that I just thought, this guy's a Doctor Who fan. I can tell, I can smell it. It's just, he loves Doctor Who. He's practically writing Doctor Who in disguise.
I was incredibly lucky on this, because it began with having dinner with Stephen Moffat.
He'd said something very nice about me, some Doctor Who's I'd written on his blog, and I sent him a jokey email saying, thank you, and...
We sort of decided we liked each other, and that I made it pretty clear I wanted to write an episode.
Cyberman, get down!
It begins with an email from Stephen Moffat saying, I know you've said you are too busy to ever write another Doctor Who episode, but would you like to make the Cybermen scarier? Ah, yes I do. Yes I do, I will. The only problem with it was I had no idea what I was doing with the Doctor. And then I had an idea. So I emailed Stephen Moffat and I said, look, I have a mad idea. It's something that I wouldn't do for any other actor except Matt Smith, but I think Matt could pull it off. Could I have half of his brain taken over and have him be the cyber planner that he is playing his chess game with? Stephen said, go for it. And suddenly I had a story. It all now worked. It was all an absolute delight.
Neil is known not to like to discuss where he gets his ideas or inspiration from, but there was a short article posted where he says a few words about a select few of authors who he claims influenced and inspired him. G.K. Chesterton, a writer from the early 1900s who is said to have become one of the most prolific writers of all time. Neil is quoted saying, behind every Chesterton sentence, there was someone painting with words, and it seems to me that at the end of any particularly good sentence or any perfectly put paradox, you could hear the author, somewhere behind the scenes, giggling with delight. Having a glimpse into the kind of person Neil Gaiman is, you can tell that this is something he strives for in his own works, and who is also the kind of person that you could hear, quote, somewhere behind the scenes, giggling with delight while you read his stories. H.P. Lovecraft. When asked about Lovecraft, Neil stated that he wasn't so much influenced by his work, rather than given pointers of the things he was inspired by. When he was a preteen, he had read something that, quote, contained his essay on supernatural horror and literature, and it was like being handed a roadmap for where I should be reading and what I should be looking for, end quote. Edgar Allan Poe. Poe isn't for everyone. He's too heady a drop for that. He may not be for you, but there are secrets to appreciating Poe, and I shall let you in on one of the most important ones. Read him aloud. That's what Neil Gaiman said about Poe. We all know that books can be given different qualities that may only be noticed when read aloud. Many of Neil's books arguably have this quality, most notably The Dangerous Alphabet and Blueberry Girl. In order to truly appreciate these types of stories, they should be read aloud. J.R.R. Tolkien. Even though Gaiman's style of writing is all his own, he still strives to achieve things as other authors had also done. Neil is quoted saying, Tolkien's words and sentences seemed like natural things, like rock formations or waterfalls, and wanting to write like Tolkien would have been for me like wanting to blossom like a cherry tree, or climb a tree like a squirrel, or rain like a thunderstorm.
Neil Gaiman does not have one specific trend. Some of his trends are fantasy and enchantment, he likes to play with your imagination, and he likes horror. In the following clip, Neil Gaiman talks about his trends in writing for children compared to writing for adults.
I don't know that writing for children is tougher than writing for adults, but writing for children, I always feel I have to be a lot more precise. Tuesday has 32 pages. Some of them don't have words on. The ones that do have words on, have 5 words, 6 words. When you're writing for the intended audience of children, you know that, for little children, every time they turn the page, it's exciting. Because I remember when I was a kid, and every time I turned the page, it was exciting. Anything could be on that page. And then once I knew what was on that page, it was even more exciting to go back, because this time I was going to look and find new things and look at details. I absolutely believe in not boring kids. I said once that American Gods, huge big book for adults. There's stuff in there that just exists because it amused me. There's stuff in there that just exists because I wrote it down and I thought, great. With Coraline, there's 33,000 words, and I know exactly what every one of those 33,000 words is doing in that story. There's not a word that I would cut, and I can explain to you exactly why it's that word and not another word, and I can justify everything. And I feel really good about that, and I feel like I owe that to kids. There isn't any waffle, there isn't any stuff that's extraneous, it's just the story. Here you go. And that's how I feel with Fortunately the Milk. I could have written Fortunately the Milk for adults, and it would have been a giant fantasy trilogy. And it would be huge, and it would be heavy, and, you probably wouldn't even meet the time-traveling Stegosaurus till the end of book 1, because we've already got the aliens and the pirates. And then, by the time the vampires come in, it'd be huge, it'd be monstrous. Much more fun for me to do a book that's basically 10,000 words long, incredibly heavily illustrated, and just funny and fun, and give that to kids. And to adults who want to be kids.
According to Russell, language for a children's book has to be carefully chosen to accompany the pictures, and it must be easy for the children to understand. However, this is not the case for Neil Gaiman in Blueberry Girl. The pictures that he uses and the language that he uses are much more for an adult instead of a child. When it comes to poetry and using similes, Russell states that a simile should make the point clearer and create more colorful speech. And this is seen at the end of Blueberry Girl, as there are some lines that read, "Truth is a thing she must find for herself, precious and rare as a pearl." This simile certainly makes for a more colorful and vivid image, and readers can picture something abstract, such as truth, into something concrete, the pearl.
Here's a video of Neil Gaiman reading his book, Blueberry Girl.
Ladies of light and ladies of darkness, and ladies of never you mind, this is a prayer for a blueberry girl. First, may you ladies be kind. Keep her from spindles and sleeps at 16. Let her stay waking and wise. Nightmares at 3 or bad husbands at 30, these will not trouble her eyes. Dull days at 40, false friends at 15. Let her have brave days and truth. Let her go places that we've never been, trust and delight in her youth. Ladies of grace and ladies of favor and ladies of merciful night, this is a prayer for a blueberry girl. Grant her your clearness of sight. Words can be worrisome, people complex, motives and manners unclear. Grant her the wisdom to choose her path right, free from unkindness and fear. Let her tell stories and dance in the rain, somersault, tumble and run. Her joys must be high as her sorrows are deep. Let her grow like a weed in the sun. Ladies of paradox, ladies of measure, ladies of shadows that fall. This is a prayer for a blueberry girl, words written clear on a wall. Help her to help herself, help her to stand, help her to lose and to find. Teach her we're only as big as our dreams. Show her that fortune is blind. Truth is a thing she must find for herself, precious and rare as a pearl. Give her all these and a little bit more, gifts for a blueberry girl.
Publisher's Weekly Review calls Blueberry Girl a, quote, magical blessing for unconventional girls, and fans of Gaiman and Vess will pounce on this creation. So too will readers who seek for their daughter's affirmation that sidesteps traditional spiritual conventions.
The foci of Neil Gaiman's book, The Blueberry Girl, is that there is a very diverse amount of girls from all different backgrounds. The book is very bright and cheerful with the illustrations, and there are animals throughout the book, which makes it feel wild, carefree, and serene. There's a repetition of, "This is a prayer for a blueberry girl," and Neil's words, "a" or "her," show that it is for more than one girl, not just a specific one he wrote about. The theme of Blueberry Girl can be said to be a poem or a prayer for mothers and daughters, a celebration of life.